Hello, my random assortment of internet people. With the surprising success of my top 10 MegaMan X weapons, this video has been a long time coming. Seriously, 60,000 views. Woohoo! Couple things to note. I'm only including weapons for X, no Zero or Axle weapons, and there really aren't a whole lot of bad weapons, so for the first few, kind of had to scrape the bottom of the barrel here. Also, keep in mind, one of my main judging criteria for this is why would you use it over another special weapon, or more importantly, why would you use it over your Buster? So then, without further stalling, the top 10 worst MegaMan X weapons. Number 10. Double Cyclone. This is really a good example of a weapon that I want to like, but just can't. At first glance, it's a weapon that's built more for taking out bigger enemies, due to its low fire rate, and I'm assuming high damage output. Now, I say assuming because the main problem here is it doesn't affect most larger enemies. In fact, this is a problem with a lot of the weapons in the game. They don't affect a good number of the enemies that you would use special weapons on. And it's because of this that what could have been a really great weapon turns out to be just incredibly underwhelming. Although granted, the charge shot will take out larger enemies that are immune to the normal shot, but you only get about 8 shots of that, and really in that scenario there's another weapon you could use, or if you have the Plasma Buster, you can just use that. That'll take them out just as easy. Number 9. Tri-Thunder from MegaMan X5. Now, this weapon starts a pattern that you'll be seeing a lot in this video. Weapon ripoffs. Tell me, does this weapon look familiar to you? It should if you played MegaMan 1. It is literally Elecman's weapon with a little change done to it. The vertical shots will just go through walls if you're using Elecman's weapon, but here they turn into balls and travel across the surface. It's got a decent amount of power, but again, I'm taking off massive points because it's the same as the Thunder Beam with a little extra thrill. Oh, and the charge shot is horribly inaccurate. Number 8. Dark Hole. Remember when I said ripoffs would become a pattern? Yeah, does this look familiar? True, the graphics aren't the same, but this is the exact function of the Time Stopper from MegaMan 2. Doesn't even have a charge. No different function unless you count inverting the colors. This is made even more redundant because we got a weapon that was all around better than Time Stopper in MegaMan 4. Why couldn't we just have the Flash Stopper? If you were gonna rip off a classic MegaMan weapon, why didn't you rip off the superior Flash Stopper? Number 7. Twin Slashers. Another weapon that looks like it could have been good, has very high fire rate, and with the infinite ammo you get in X4, that sounds really useful. Unfortunately, it's weaker than your normal shots. I'm not even kidding. It just has a pathetic power. I know what you're thinking. Well, you know, maybe the charge shot has a lot more power. It doesn't. It really doesn't. I think it might do as much as one of your normal shots. True, it has a very wide radius, but if I'm gonna charge something, I'd rather charge something else. Really, just the lack of power kills this weapon, and such a shame. Number 6. The Shining Ray. This one... I want to like the weapons from X8, I really do, and some of them are very good. But then you have weapons like Shining Ray. For how long it takes to launch this thing, and how vulnerable it leaves you when you're firing it, it really should do more damage. Something with this weapon, as well as a lot of others from the later X games, I noticed that the charge shot just seems to be a more powerful version of the normal shot. Shining Ray suffers from this horribly. The charge is literally just 3 Shining Rays at the same time. Yay! Number 5. Once again, from X8, we have the Shadow Runner. This is one that people tell me they like, but for the life of me, I don't see it. The power is pathetic, which wouldn't be a problem if it had any kind of rapid fire on it. It's pathetic. Only one can be on the screen at a time, and it takes forever to actually hit the opponent. Realistically, it's meant for taking out 1 or 2 smaller enemies, which unfortunately isn't something that happens. If you have smaller enemies, they're going to try and swarm you. And in this situation, it's just not going to be useful. Again, this is one where it's just better off to use your Buster or another weapon. Number 4. I hate this weapon. I hate this stage. I hate this boss. I hate everything having to do with this just area. The Goose Shaver is a complete ripoff of the Ground Hunter from MegaMan X4. That's right, the game preceding this one. Wow, that's lazy! Not only is it a direct ripoff, except from the charge, it has less functionality than the Ground Hunter. It's painful because I like the Ground Hunter, and just this can go blah. Number 3, the Guard Shell. Hey, you know what sounds really great? A shield weapon that won't stop hardly any attack. There are only a few projectiles in the game that it will stop, and then it takes forever to fire a projectile back at them, and its power is pathetic. Its charge is kind of nice and creative, but it just can't make up for the useless shit that is the normal version of Guard Shell. Pathetic. Oh, you want to hear even more pathetic? Try using it against the boss it's meant to be used against. I know that was really long-winded, but Infinity Minion! My most hated Mega Man X boss ever! Guard Shell cannot do shit. You have to wait for this one attack that he rarely ever uses in order to hit him with Guard Shell. And then what happens? It does shit for damage. Oh, what's that? Just use the charge? Still does shit for damage, and then the whole area is just a big clusterfuck, and then I don't want to play this anymore. Number 2, Gravity Well. Hey, look, it's a weapon from the 16-bit series. Didn't think you'd see that on here. Well, you probably did if you've ever used Gravity Well. Gravity Well is useless, and I mean literally useless, against any medium or large-sized enemy. Really, it's only good for taking out a couple of things, and even then, it takes forever to do it. You would be much better using any other weapon. Just really, any other weapon. And here's the funny part. I have never once used Gravity Well effectively, except for when I was recording this. Not before, not after, but only during was I able to use Gravity Well effectively like this. That just sucks. Number 1! Every single fucking weapon from Mega Man X7. If that sounds like a cop-out to you, then congratulations! If you played this game, you'd understand. Where do I start? Let's get some of the basics out of the way. A good portion of the weapons are rip-offs from the first few X games. Yeah, if it hasn't been made completely clear by now, I hate weapon rip-offs. And really, there's a whole cashing in on the nostalgia angle that this entire game tries to do, but that's a subject for another day. Then, you have the fact that none of these weapons can interact with the environments in any way. You remember in like X1 and X2, like, oh, look at this, the spin wheel is used to discover this power-up. Awesome! This weapon is cool, it's used to interact with the environment, or strike chain can pull me closer to things. None of that in X7. There's just, oh, look, there's a heart tank in the spikes. Yay! The weapons are just all useless, and a lot of them aren't designed with a 3D environment in mind. You just won't be able to hit anything with them. And that brings me to my next point, the lock-on feature. One of the main reasons to use special weapons in the other X games was your buster can't hit everything. There are times when, okay, I can't hit this enemy, let's bring out this special weapon. There's no situation like that in X7. Your buster has a lock-on, it's too powerful. There's no point to use any of these weapons, even if, and I do mean if, they were good. Okay, so let's take this weapon by weapon now, and get some specifics in here. Circle Blades. This is probably the most useful weapon in the game, and sadly, it comes from the most annoying boss. Not as annoying as Infinity Minion, just annoying. Not super poorly designed as some other bosses. Infinity Minion, I am coming for you, but just annoying. I will spare your ears the burn to the ground, because I like you guys. But anyway, the weapon itself has decent power, but it has a very low range to it, and like every other weapon in X7, a high energy consumption for what it actually does. It just really doesn't feel worth it for the amount of energy that it takes to launch it. Speaking of, let's move on to Explosion. This weapon strikes me as something that was too good, so the developers thought, you know what, this weapon's too good, we need to nerf it. So they just picked like 3 guys and said, okay, each of you, come up with an idea to nerf this weapon. One guy came back and said, okay, let's make it consume a lot of energy. Second guy came back and said, okay, well, let's remove the range a bit, so it's a short-firing weapon. And the third guy said, well, let's just take the power down a bit, so that it won't be so overpowered. And they thought, yeah, those are really good ideas. Let's do all 3 of them and make it the most useless weapon ever. If it weren't for every other weapon in X7, this would probably be number 1. You're lucky to get 2 or 3 shots with maxed out weapon energy, which is a whole other... And it's useless. It has like no power, no range, just... I don't want to talk about it anymore. I hate it. Next up, Volt Tornado. Has mediocre power, but it takes a while to fire, and have you tried using this thing in 3D, which is like easily half the game? If you still have all your hair, I'm going to assume that you haven't, because otherwise you would have pulled it all out in frustration. Next up, Splash Laser. I'm just gonna play these 2 clips back to back, and you tell me if they look like they function similarly, and also tell me if Splash Laser looks like something you want to use. Next up, Gaia Shield. You know, X7, I already got that you're starting to rip off past X games, but did you have to rip off a weapon that sucks? This is a rip-off of the guard shell, only minus the ability to be able to deploy it in any direction, minus the decent charge shot, and minus the ability to reflect bullets. This is a shield weapon, where you have to charge at your enemy to inflict damage. Who the fuck came up with that? Wind Cutter. Kind of a ripoff of Boomerang Cutter, maybe? It's kind of grasping at straws on there, I know, but otherwise it's just really underpowered and underwhelming, and I don't want to talk about it. Coming up next, Sniper Missile. This is an obvious fucking ripoff of the homing missile from X1. Good weapon in X1. Here it's just incredibly slow, only one can be on the screen at a time, decent power, but you only have enough weapon energy to launch a couple of them. Just weapon energy is a constant problem that I just hate. Last one. Moving wheel. It's painful. It's really painful because I like spin wheel so much. This is spin wheel minus all functionality and all likability. Remember how the charge of spin wheel was awesome and had different functionality than just sending the wheel out? It was something you could actually use. The charge for this, just 3 useless wheels. We're not even trying at this point. Why bother? Okay, I'm done with this. X7 has broken me. Thank you for watching, everyone. That was my little list of the worst X weapons conceivable. Let me know what you think. Remember, this is all just my opinion. Let me know what your worst weapons are. I was hearing a lot of Shadowrunner being good. Defend it for me. Tell me why you like these weapons if I put it on there. And try to convince me.